The government's insisting that it is acting within international law after publishing legislation to override parts of the Brexit deal. The Foreign Secretary says the UK is still open to negotiations with the European Union, despite making moves to ignore the Northern Ireland Protocol.
We're very clear that we're acting in line with the law. We'll be publishing our legal statement later today. What is vitally important is that we do resolve this situation in Northern Ireland that is causing real problems. We haven't seen the executive operating since February. We need to get power sharing re-established. We know how hard won the Belfast Good Friday Agreement was, and that is why the government has to act. That is why we are introducing this legislation. Now, of course, we remain open to negotiations with the EU, and I would rather achieve this through a negotiated settlement. But the fact is, the EU have refused to change the protocol, which is causing these problems on trade, on tax, and more broadly in Northern Ireland.
Well, the move has been welcomed by the Democratic Unionists, but Sinn Féin says it's a clear violation of the law.
I believe that finally we are now seeing the kind of action that is required to begin the process of removing the barriers to trade within the United Kingdom, to restoring Northern Ireland's place within the UK internal market. As the bill progresses, we will consider what steps we can take, along with others, to build progress, to make progress in Northern Ireland. I want these institutions up and running, but I'm also clear we need to be sure that this legislation is going forward.
Today's action by Boris Johnson in Westminster is absolutely reckless. It's disgraceful. It does nothing to serve the interests of the people here. It flies in the face of an international agreement which he himself negotiated. It is in clear breach of international law. And it is, the reality is here that the protocol is working. The majority of businesses have been out and been very vocal on that. 80% of businesses would say the protocol is working. It's actually affording them great opportunities. It's creating jobs. And yet and all, we have Boris Johnson again delivering on the commitment that he made to breach international law. I don't think that's a good look on anybody.
Michelle O'Neill there. We've got correspondents in Westminster, Belfast and Brussels. Let's go first to Westminster and Rob Powell. So clearly, Rob, a controversial move by the government. Just remind us why they claim this is necessary.
Well, they say it's necessary because they think there are problems that are being caused in Northern Ireland by the Northern Ireland Protocol that means that the UK needs to take action on its own to amend the protocol. And they're going to do that through a bill that's just been published. This is it, the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill, and it is 20 pages long. And if you just read basically the first main chunk of it that has the overview of the main provisions, you get a sense of what it's designed to do. It said this Act provides that certain specified provisions of the Northern Ireland Protocol does not have effect in the United Kingdom, and it gives ministers of the Crown powers to make new law in connection with the Northern Ireland Protocol. So really, as suspected for a long time, a bill that will be probably anyway, passed through the Commons and the Lords that will give ministers here in Westminster power to rewrite, to make new law in regards to the Northern Ireland Protocol, to disapply parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol as well. In terms of specifically what that will be, well, from the briefings we've been having with the government today, they say that it's essentially focused on four main parts. The first is creating this green and red channel system for products coming into Northern Ireland, so that goods that come through the green channel, which are not at risk, not likely to be moved on to the EU, don't have to have so much paperwork and so many checks, whilst the red goods still would have full checks. The second is about regulation, about standards, and about allowing goods into Northern Ireland, making them, saying that they can either abide by the EU regime or the UK regime, so a dual regime essentially in Northern Ireland. The third is about the application of VAT and state aid rules, and the fourth is about governance, essentially about what role European courts have in arbitrating disputes in Northern Ireland. The UK wants there to be an independent arbitration process which can just have reference to European courts, so European courts wouldn't get the final say on disputes in Northern Ireland. In terms of the legal position in all all of this. The government has also published online a statement of what they say is their legal underpinning for their justification that this does not, in their view, breach international law. And they are relying on something called the doctrine of necessity, where essentially they say it provides a clear basis, and I'm reading to you from their justification here online, a clear basis in international law to justify the non-performance of international obligations under certain exceptional and limited circumstances. Now, the exceptional and limited circumstances that they are relying on, that they are talking about, is what they see as the political, the social impact that the Northern Ireland Protocol is having on life in Northern Ireland. So essentially, they believe the situation being caused by the protocol in Northern Ireland is so severe that it crosses the threshold and gives them grounds to disapply parts of the Brexit deal, parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol that Boris Johnson signed some 2.5 years ago. Now, I think what we will see over the coming hours, days and probably weeks are international law experts that are much more well-versed in this than I could ever be, unpick this bill, unpick the legalese in this bill, and come to their own decision about whether they think this does indeed breach international law. The government's position at the moment, though, is that they don't believe it does, but of course there have been disputes over which top government lawyers have had their say over this, and accusations essentially of the government shopping around for legal advice that fits their political aims. So I think we will see that row over the legal grounding for this and play out in the coming days. But the end result of what's happened in the last hour is that this 20-page bill, the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill, has been introduced into the House of Commons. It's had its first reading, a relatively quick procedural process that goes on in the Commons. It will be back in a couple of weeks' time, probably, for its second reading. It's at that point we will get a lot more anger from the Green benches and potentially a rebellion from Conservative MPs as well.
OK, Rob, thanks very much. Let's go to Belfast and Stephen Murphy. And we heard at the top of the programme there, Stephen, welcomed by the Unionists and condemned by Sinn Féin.
The doctrine of necessity, as Rob was explaining there, doesn't really cut much mustard here with the nationalist community. The nationalist parties at Stormont certainly didn't cut any mustard with Michelle O'Neill. I directly asked her, is what Boris Johnson's doing today illegal? And she said yes. She said definitively yes. It breaches international law. It breaches the Brexit withdrawal agreement and the protocol obviously contained within. She is furious. She called it reckless and she called it a dangerous move that serves nobody. It doesn't serve the people here in Northern Ireland, she said, and it doesn't serve the businesses either. What Sinn Féin can actually do about it, though, is another question. Obviously, they're not represented in Westminster. She has urged the British government and the European Commission to try to bang their heads again and step up and ratchet up negotiations. This time, she said, in good faith. She was obviously implying that the British government was a bad faith negotiating partner up until this point. And then, of course, it was Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, the leader of the DUP's turn to face the media, and we got a completely different reaction. He warmly welcomed this legislation. Just to remind you, the DUP is boycotting the Assembly here at Stormont. That's why we don't have an executive, a power-sharing government here. They say they won't go back in until the protocol issue is tackled, until it's sorted. So the big question, obviously, is does this do that? He won't be drawn yet. They have 7 individual tests they said they're going to apply. Obviously, he hasn't seen the small print of this legislation either. So the DUP won't be drawn yet on whether this is enough to restore power sharing, which, of course, is something that Liz Truss referred to there and Boris Johnson has referred to there. They would love to see that be a outcome of this legislation, but we don't know yet whether the DUP will play ball.
OK, Stephen, thanks very much. And finally to Brussels and Adam Parsons. And so, Adam, how will the EU react to this, do you think?
We have already had the first reactions, and fair to say that the EU is going on exactly the terms that we predicted. They are furious. They have said that they will not renegotiate the Northern Ireland Protocol. I've already had messages from diplomats who say that they are being, quote unquote, played again by Boris Johnson's government. That is the message that's been sent to me. Another one saying to me that when Boris Johnson needed a deal, we helped to get him one across the line, one that he signed, and now that it suits him, he's trying to bring it down again. There is a great deal of cynicism here, but there is already reaction from Maros Sefcovic, the EU's chief negotiator, talking about this, saying that the Northern Ireland Protocol is the only method by which you can balance the requirements of the Good Friday Agreement and the requirements of the EU's single market. I think we can listen now to just a little bit of Mr. Sefcovic talking also about, in his mind, the impossibility of renegotiating the protocol.
Renegotiating of the protocol is unrealistic. No workable alternative solution has been found to this delicate, long-negotiated balance. Any renegotiations would simply bring further legal uncertainty for the people and businesses in Northern Ireland. For these reasons, the European Union will not renegotiate the protocol.
This position, we're in this curious position whereby both sides are in effect making the same argument in the UK and across the EU. Both sides saying they are the ones protecting the Good Friday Agreement. Both sides insisting that they are open to negotiation, and it is the others who are being dogmatic. Of course, one profound difference is the EU says you cannot bring down this protocol. The UK saying you need to. And one other thing is, I said to you a little earlier, that I thought it was very likely that that legal proceedings would start soon against the UK. I think that is ever more likely. I think that process will begin in the next 48 hours or so. Three things may happen. One is that a former process that was frozen will be unfrozen. Secondly, more proceedings will be started. That is in the terms of the trade agreement. And thirdly, by the way, there is this prospect that if this becomes ever more rancorous, that there could be tariff in the start of a trade war. And there is a thought that tariffs could be introduced on industries who are based in the constituencies of high-profile MPs. Problem is, I'm told, that they've looked at places like Uxbridge and Norfolk and not found many industries that actually could be hurt by EU tariffs. But that is the level of negotiation that we've got to. Make no mistake, this is turning into a very, very bitter argument.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, thanks very much. Adam Parsons in Brussels, Stephen Murphy and Rob Powell, thank you all.